4th, 2025. Welcome to a regular business meeting of the Billings City Council. And as I predicted, mysteries have happened. Congratulations. So Chris, did you figure that out?
Well, only slightly. It's figured out, but that means Zoom folks can't hear. So Zoom is where the issue is coming on the echo side.
Okay, we'll keep going and then we'll make sure that people on our Zoom connection can hear in just a minute. All right, with that, if you would, stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and then our invocation by Councilmember Boyette. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we gathered here today to conduct the business of our community, let us take a moment to reflect and give thanks for the opportunities we have to serve and to lead. May we approach this meeting with wisdom, understanding, and a spirit of cooperation, working together for the greater good of all residents. We ask for guidance in our decisions, that they may reflect fairness, justice, and respect for every person in our city. Let us work to ensure that all voices are heard and that the needs of our community are addressed with integrity and compassion. Thank you for the opportunity to serve, and may our efforts today be blessed with success. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. Denise, would you call the roll, please?
Oh, he can. Is that for me? I can't hear if it was me.
Yeah, we apologize, Councilmember Bernice, but we know you're here.
Here. Here.
Councilmember Kennedy online.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here. First item of business, council, is approval of our minutes from February 10th, 2025. There was one change on there. Denise, would you just describe that change that was identified by Councilmember Bernice?
Yes, in the minutes for February 10th, it was noted in the roll call that Councilmember Neese attended via Zoom, and that was incorrect. So that change is to be made.
Okay, and that correction has been made. So do we have a motion? Councilmember Boyette?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve the February 10th, 2025 minutes as read with the addition of the addition.
Very good. Second, Councilmember Shaw. Any discussion? If not, if in favor of the motion, was Councilmember Bernice say something? No, okay. Motion is for approval. The minutes from February 10th, 2025. If in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. If opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Denise, can you tell the people online, could you hear, or do we have their ability to speak even if they're having problems hearing?
Councilmember Neese, can you hear us?
I think that probably answers the question. Denise, if you would recognize in the minutes their inability to vote at this point, and therefore they didn't have a vote.
Yes, I will do that. Thank you.
Okay.
I just started hearing you, Mayor.
Councilmember Bernice, we can hear you now. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can, but I didn't hear you until just now. After Councilmember Boyette, nothing until I just heard you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Bill. Did you hear?
No,
Bill?
I just got sound.
Okay. All right. How about you, Tom?
Councilmember Bernice, you said something. What did you say?
Yeah, I was just asking if Tom, it looks like Tom is remote too. I wonder if he heard you at all.
Yeah, the sound quality is so poor, bouncing back and forth.
His mic is unmuted, so I thought he was remote.
There's so much replay in that it's virtually impossible to hear the council members online. Unless we can fix that, we're going to have to just ask them to observe.
That would be my recommendation, Mayor, under the circumstances, is that
Councilmembers
those run.
Kennedy and Neese, we'll do what we can to let you engage in conversation, but we were having problems understanding on this end because of the feedback. Although mine sounds better now, so. Okay, but again, they can't hear now.
The echo goes away when we cut off their sound. So they can't hear what's going on here. So I think under the circumstances, we should move forward with the council meeting. Unfortunately, those who are on Zoom won't be able to participate.
Okay. I wish that were not the case. We could take a recess if you thought that that would make any difference, or we can proceed. But I'm not hearing any request from staff for a recess.
I would suggest we proceed.
Okay. We'll do that. If you could text council members Neese and Kennedy, explain as best you can, or make a phone call and ask them if there's something in particular that they want to be heard on, in which case we'll bend over backwards to make that happen. We'll move ahead then. We've got a fair crowd. We don't want to keep them waiting, and we've, again, asked for your patience with us. Our first item up then is, after our minutes, are council courtesies. I'm going to start us off with that one. We're fortunate to have in our audience tonight Porter Eaton. Porter is a student at McKinley Elementary, and you may have seen some news accounts. He, over the going to the holiday season, became aware of a lot of kids at McKinley who had some very real material needs. And he took it on himself to set up a GoFundMe page to help solve those needs. I'm going to ask him to come forward, tell us a little bit more about his GoFundMe project, maybe to even tell us how much he's raised. I could tell you ballpark, but I don't want to steal his thunder. So Porter, welcome to the Billings City Council. You may need to pull that microphone down a little bit to be closer to your mouth. There you go. Perfect. Go ahead.
About a project I did at my school. As you may know, we have high levels of poverty among the students at McKinley. My family and I have a lot of conversations of how difficult it must be to come to school when you're cold or hungry. About 2 months ago, I had an idea to see if I could help these kids. I started a project called the McKinley Angel Fund. My idea was to raise money that could be used to support students for any of their basic needs. My goal is not to just help this year, but to use these funds to support McKinley students for many years to come. I launched my project on December 17th with a goal of raising $10,000 by March 1st. As of today, I have raised $23,615. I will be managing this money with my parents. I'm working with my principal and counselor to have them help me determine the needs and how to best have a big impact. I've presented to local businesses and received support from many community leaders. Many of you have supported my project, and I wanted to come here tonight to say thank you.
Thank you. Hey, yeah, Porter, come on up, and if your parents and your sister are good, they could come too. And brother, I didn't see there. Okay. Could somebody maybe snap their picture? Come on up front, right in front of us. Okay. For those of you who couldn't see it, Porter has smiled from here to there. Thank you very much. And thank you on behalf of our community. That's just great. Other council courtesies this evening? Nobody wants to compete with that one? Oh, come on. You don't have to. It's not a competition. Any other council courtesies? I don't see any. Look, if you could, keep your eye open for little pink or yellow hands from Councilmembers Kennedy or Neese. We'll move on then to city council reports. Are there any city council reports on behalf of organizations that members of the council serve on for the city? Don't see any. I skipped over proclamations. I apologize. We do have a proclamation this evening, and it's in recognition of Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. And in case you have any doubt about what impact young people can have on our community, you just saw an example of that in Porter Eaton's example, but this proclamation originally came to us in 2022 as a result of efforts by Eagle Cliffs elementary student Cambria Thompson. She and her mom had a sad death in their family from colorectal cancer, and they set out to dedicate themselves to educating our community about the importance of colorectal cancer screening. And so the proclamation reads as follows: whereas colorectal cancer is the second leading cause of cancer deaths in the United States among men and women combined, and whereas colorectal cancer is one of the few cancers that can be prevented with timely screening, but 1 in 3 eligible Americans are not up to date on screening. And whereas colorectal cancer is the leading cause of cancer death for men and second leading cause of cancer death for women under the age of 50. And whereas American Indian, Alaska Natives, and Black Americans are more likely to be diagnosed with colorectal cancer and more likely to die from the disease than other groups. And whereas colorectal cancer is expected to account for 12% of cancer deaths among Hispanic men and 9% of cancer deaths for Hispanic women. And whereas Americans in rural areas are more likely to be diagnosed with and die from colorectal cancer than Americans in urban areas. And whereas in 2024, there were approximately 152,000 new cases and 53,000 deaths from colorectal cancer. And whereas the national goal established by the National Colorectal Cancer Roundtable is to strive to increase timely colorectal cancer screening rates to 80% in every community for all Americans eligible for screening. And whereas observing Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month during the month of March would provide a special opportunity to increase awareness and offer education on the importance of early detection and screening of colorectal cancer. Now, therefore, I, William Cole, Mayor of the City of Billings, do hereby proclaim March 2025 as Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month in Billings and encourage all citizens to get screened for this disease, which can often be treated when detected early or prevented altogether. So those are our proclamations this evening. City Council or City Administrator report. Chris, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, just a couple things, Mayor. First, there is a valid protest was received Friday concerning zone change 1061. This item is not on tonight's agenda. The consent agenda item 1Q is a resolution of intent to annex. So the protest doesn't affect this evening, but both the annexation and the zone change are scheduled to be heard by council on March 24th at the regular business meeting. So just clarification there on that protest and its impacts. There were no ex parte communications received after 3 today. And then last, just want to thank the public and our staff as we put out a number of public service announcements last week, about 10,000 stormwater inlets in Billings. And we've just asked anyone out there, citizens included, to help make sure those drains are clear as the melt is happening fairly quickly. We do know there is some flooding, but generally speaking, it's not that I've seen property damage as a result of. So again, a big thank you to the staff and our citizens who are taking the time to just make sure those storm drains are free from ice and snow so that that water can drain into the stormwater system and prevent any
all of the sub-items there. All of the other items, there'll be a public hearing on. Technically, 4B, the Anafeld plat, is also open. If you'd like to comment on the Anafeld plat, which is 4B, but realistically, if you want to comment on that later when we have our public hearing, I'm not going to shut you down on that. But anyway, and we'll have an opportunity at the very end of the meeting to comment on things not on our agenda. So please come forward. We just ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. Tell us name and address, anything on item 1. Elise.
But I'm Elise Monad. I'm the transportation planner with our Metropolitan Planning Organization. I'll give my address as this building. I just wanted to comment on item 1J today and thank Billings TrailNet for their donation of $20,000 to support design of 2 trails, both the Colson Park Trail Connection and the Alkali Creek Trail Connection. These are 2 really important connections that we've had in the capital improvement plan, the CIP, for many years and just haven't been able to take any action on it because we don't have any funds to do the initial development. And we kind of get into this catch-22 where we kind of can't do the initial development in terms of getting easements and that type of thing. And then we can't get, should I keep going?
Excuse us just a second. Instant replay. We're good? Go ahead.
Okay. So we get into kind of a catch-22 where we don't have funds to kind of get the project started, and so then we can't get them ready for grants, and then when the grants come around, it's so anyway, these are really important funds that Billings TrailNet is bringing to the table that we don't currently have another way to access. And then I also wanted to say that Billings TrailNet obviously works really hard to raise funds every day for shared use paths in Billings. I attend their board meetings monthly, and Christy, the staff, and all of their board members are really engaged and really dedicated to raising funds for shared use paths as well as other walking and biking infrastructure, and advocating for the safety, wellness, and happiness of our community members, which is really important. Their work is evident in several other things, especially some that we have tonight. They donated about $36,000 to the Rose Park Trail, which is a Safe Routes to School project. They obviously helped a lot with the Stagecoach Trail, which I believe you're voting on the contract for that tonight for design. They've got a couple other ones in the works that they're helping out with as well. So I just wanted to say thanks again to Christy and all her staff and the Billings TrailNet board for their donation for helping us get started on these projects.
Very good. Thank you, Elise. Christy, did you want to add anything? Or
No, I appreciate the appreciation. That's very nice. And I'll forward that to my board of directors. Does that for free. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Very good. Other public comment on any of the items under item 1? Any other public comment on item 1? Before we close public comment. No one is coming forward, or is someone coming? No. Okay. And if anybody needs a copy of the agenda, it's back behind that B, back by the front door as you came in. And that'll tell you what's on the agenda this evening. Okay, so we will close public comments and move ahead to separations. Councilmember Aspenleiter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I need to separate agenda item 1Q for the purposes of recusal. Our firm is working with Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter and Collaborative on that process, so I'll be recusing myself from Q. I'd also like to separate item 1E for some questions. That's 21st Street underpass improvements.
Very good. Other separations? Are there any other separations? Not seeing any. We'll move ahead. Chris and Kevin, Councilmembers Neese and Kennedy are still with us. Can you tell us a little bit any more of their status?
What I've asked them to do while we're working through this is they can listen through Facebook or Channel 7. So that's why you had a delay. It was Mr. Kennedy was able to hear, but it's a delayed time frame through those other sources. So we've muted him so we don't hear what he's hearing. So they're a few seconds behind us. But at the time, that's how I believe they're both able to, it's the
Okay.
best we're able to do in the short term.
So here in a minute or two, they'll hear what we're saying now. And I just want them to know that although it may be a little bit difficult to plug them in, if they do have, want to ask a question or make comments about any of these items, please put up their little yellow hand. And even though there may be some disconnect in the time, we'll do what we can to hear their comments or their questions. Okay, thank you. Any other, no other separations? Councilmember Boyette.
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agendas items except for 1E and 1Q.
Very good. Is there a second? Come by Councilmember Ripsis. Any discussion on the motion to approve the non-separated items? Councilmember Ripsis.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a question real quick on 1D, the Stagecoach Trail funding. It says that the $543 is going to be used from the parks operating funds. I think that was supposed to come out of the programs fund. I just want to make sure that that's accurate, and I don't think it,
See, Debbie's coming up to help. Or, I'm sorry, here's Andy's here.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Yes, consistent with the budget that was adopted, the match funds will come out of the Parks Program funds. That's correct. Yep.
thank you, Mayor, if I.
Please go ahead.
Not on that topic, but on something else. I don't think I see Amanda Kelly or Peter O'Brien here from the, Peter, Amanda, Peter, sorry. Very good. Just wanted to recognize you and the Billings Skate Park Committee, as well as the Parks Department for getting the National Rec Parks Association and Musco grant. So do you want to tell us about it real quick? I think this is worth just a quick mention.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, we received a grant from the NRPA in conjunction with Musco Lighting.
Can you just say what that acronym NRPA stands for?
The National Parks and Rec Association. $20,000 of that goes directly to Parks and Rec to implement programming. Another $100,000 will fully fund lights at the skate park there. So thanks to Tom, Bill, Ed, and Kendra, who wrote a letter of support. I think that helped a lot. So I appreciate you all.
I think that's a great, and thanks for taking the initiative on that. I'm glad we were able to help. And I was excited to see that we got it. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Just another example of how our public is stepping forward for funding. Very good. Any other discussion on non-separated items? Okay, we'll move ahead. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes. Again, we don't have contemporaneous participation by Council Members Kennedy and Nee, so we'll have to recognize that in the minutes that they were not able to vote. We'll move on then to the first separated item, which is item 1E, consultant contract with Kittleson Associates to complete the 21st Street underpass. Councilmember Rasfleiter, that was your separation for some questions or discussion. Would you kick us off?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Laura, thanks. My initial questions, I guess, are they may be leading here into a couple of questions, but I know that this was a former Councilman Yakowicz priority, and this has went through many maturations with 27th Street and what MDT looked at and that effort, and revolved around safety to some extent, and that's kind of where the impetus of this came from. But my questions more specifically are, what is the line of sight on actual funding for this project? I mean, if we do a planning study, it's been in the CIP forever, 5 years out, because that's what we do when we don't have funding sources. Our urban funds are tied up in the CIP for Grand Avenue on the west end and then Rimrock on the west end. Our CMAQ dollars are tied up for a while. What's the line of sight on actual funding for this project, and where does this go?
Thank you, Council Member Aspenleiter, Mayor Council. Yes, this project has been on our books for a while. This was requested for staff to look at. It was in our FY24, and then we carried it over to FY25 work program to complete this project. It is in the CIP for 2028 to do improvements to that underpass. This step, the MPO is really there to help support the city and the county for these future projects by being able to do those planning level documents to support it. I can't directly say where the funding for the future improvements will come from, but I know engineering has been supporting the review of this underpass since the North 27th Street crossing came back as really a no-build option. This was another opportunity to look at this one for safely maneuvering emergency service vehicles and people to and from the south side to the north side. I can't directly say that potentially in the future this segment of roadway was placed on our urban system, so potentially it could in the future be looked at for urban dollars depending on if the city wanted to move forward with those.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Maybe I can redirect this to Debbie, who unfortunately for her did not duck out fast enough. And I guess I'll kind of ask the same question. I know it's in our CIP, and I know it's been in our CIP for a long time. I also know that our MDT funding and our urban funding and all of those funds are tied up for quite some time now. What is the realistic line of sight on funding to get this built?
So I think it would have to come out of urban funding with all the work done on Montana and on First. I mean, they're both state routes, they're state maintained. We don't have it in our 5 to 10 year plan for gas tax. So we originally looked at urban funds years ago when Councilmember Yakowicz was on the city council. Those are out a ways. I don't know if Laura can tell us how far we're out on those, but with Grand Avenue and the current cost on that being upwards of 25 million, I think it's out a little ways.
Laura, did you have any other detail?
Yes, I can. Just to address the urban funding, now that our portion of the Billings bypass has been fully allocated through our urban funds, we are allocating dollars yearly again. And yes, the Grand Avenue project is the community priority for right now, but we are still generating funding every year in our urban pot. Yes, it would be a while before we generate enough to probably do another project of that magnitude of 21st Street. But there are varying federal funding sources out there, carbon reduction, CMAQ. You could look down the future of partnering some of those several federal funding towards that project.
Sounds like we're out multiple years. Councilor Asplund, follow up, and Councilor Boyette.
Yeah, and I'll just wrap this up with my comment, I guess. You know, we're going to spend $150,000 on a plan that we don't have a line of sight for implementing a funding solution for, at least in the next 5 to 7 years. And what ends up happening with these plans is we do them, we put them on the shelf, they sit there for 7 years. By the time we pull it back to implement a project, we spend another $50 to update the $150,000 plan that we did 8 years ago, that needs to be updated based on traffic numbers and growth projections and all of those things. And I guess I continue to be, in a quandary as to why we do this. If we don't have an immediate line of sight, even if this was a 5-year line of sight, that's realistic, but we're well past that. And so we're going to spend money to know that we're going to have to update it again at significant dollars, not at little money. Why are we doing this, and why are we making this a priority now when we don't have a line of sight?
Chris, you want to comment, and then back to Laura?
Sure. Mayor and council, and Laura is much closer to the actual kind of decisions there, but I think a piece of the policy decision when the council, when Councilmember Yakowicz advocated and the council supported, was that we were saying to the state of Montana as a community, we do not want you to spend 8 figures I don't remember the number, but it was tens of millions of dollars to build an underpass or an overpass for the rail crossing. But we've got this underpass just a few blocks away. Wouldn't it be wiser for all of us, you included, state of Montana, to use technology to better deal with 27th and do some underpass improvements? So that doesn't answer the immediate line of sight, but I that was part of what I recall was part of the advocacy to a project that was significantly less expensive anticipated than the idea of building the bigger project.
Let's let Laura just comment and then back to you, Councilor Absalom. Can you just, Laura, is this really more than 5 years out? Or do we know?
As a planner, I don't know if I can answer that question because I don't work in the construction side of our documents. I know as the MPO, this is kind of what we do is we support through our planning level documents that, yes, they may temporarily go on the shelf, but we do pull them out when we get closer to the project to use those as our base. You know, we're not doing engineering with this document. It really is planning level to look at what feasibility is there to improve this underpass. We know significant work has to be talked to with the railroad to even see what they'll allow us to do. We have to start those conversations. Also, this project is funded through our federal PL funds at 60%. If we don't move forward with this project, we will have to do an amendment to our UPWP to make sure that those funds get reallocated back or to our future PL in a couple of years.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Espler.
Yeah, and I can understand having to do an amendment to reappropriate those dollars and move them around, but I think on a greater scale, I think that's my point, and I think I'm gonna vote against it, not because I don't think it's important. I mean, we got the outcome that we wanted out of MDT, right? We're not gonna build something on 27th Street. So why don't we do this when it's more appropriate from a timing standpoint and refocus our effort and refocus our resources on something that's more near sight and be ready. I mean, the reality is with MDT funding, nothing happens in 24 months. I mean, nothing happens in 5 years when MDT decides to do a project. And so it's not like we're all of a sudden going to lose out because we don't have something ready. I mean, those MDT projects and MDT associated projects take time to work themselves through MDT in the process. So I'm going to oppose it tonight, not because I don't think it's important, because I do, but I just don't think the timing is appropriate right now when we don't have a funding solution in mind. When we get serious about identifying a funding solution through the CIP and are going to commit and dedicate those urban funds or CMAQ funds or whatever funds we use from MDT, great. Let's bring it back and put it on board. But until we get serious about that with the other priorities, I just can't support this today.
Very good, thank you.
Could I just say one more thing?
Okay, and then down on this end, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mayor and Council, just to also, as this is an MPO, we would have to go back through our MPO process and go to the county and the planning board as all the parties involved in approving the UPWP for this project. So just wanted you to be aware that we would have to come back for that process.
Very good, thank you. Councilor Owen, Councilor McGill.
Thank you, Mayor. Laura, do you know, has anyone approached the eBird to see if there's interest in this? Are these the type of street improvements that they might be able to fund or do a small bond for? Has any of that conversation happened? It's a little weird because part of it's in the eBird and kind of it ends not in the eBird. So I get that it's a little weird. I was just wondering if there'd been any conversation.
Thank you, Councilmember Owen, Mayor, Council. Not as of yet, but they would be obviously a stakeholder in moving forward with the planning study. We would do public outreach and actually talk to those stakeholders about being involved in that type of project.
Sorry, Mayor, just as a follow-up, I meant for funding. Like, have we approached them to say, you know, we're gonna use some eBird TIF funds for this?
Funding the construction part of it. I think that's what would come out of the planning document. It would be looking at sources of funding for construction of the project. I think that would be one of the areas that we would definitely look at.
Okay, thank you.
Very good, Councilor Giller.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I will vote for this. I think there's value in the information that we'll gain from this in terms of just knowing, better understanding the scope, what all the issues would be. You know, cost is one of them, but feasibility is another. The cost piece is the one that may go a little stale over time, but I think knowing what kind of rough order of magnitude we're looking at, it can help us figure out where it sits in the priority stack versus other projects. I think the other value I see is that sometimes there are funding opportunities or grant applications for the Build project or Tiger or the programs we've had in the past. Having this study done and ready means that we can act on that right away rather than we just aren't going to be able to make use of, that's not going to be a potential project if we don't have the studies in place. So for that reason, I'll vote for it.
Very good. Council, just reminded there is no motion on the floor. Councilmember Boyette?
How long, let's say it's approved, how long does it take for this plan to spend $150,000? How long does it take to generate a plan that'll sit? A week, a month, 2 years?
Thank you, Councilmember Boyette, Mayor and Council. We're anticipating a 6-month contract to work through this feasibility study.
Very good. Councilmember Boyette?
And then is there any way to, is this a high level then, or is this down in the weeds figuring it out?
It's a planning level, so we can't do engineering with our federal PL funding, planning funding, but we can do planning level. So if you think of like the Rims to Valley study we did that gave us preliminary information on how to make connectivity from Highway 3 down to Rimrock Road, that's where we came up with like the Stagecoach Trail, potentially doing the connectivity on 27th Street and then even a connection down from kind of in between. So those planning levels, they do public outreach. They look at the existing information, kind of the boots on the ground of what the project looks like, and then we'll look at what is the feasible outcomes of a construction project. Where is it that we could place pedestrian traffic safely? We know we have an issue with oversized vehicles. They can't get through there. They have to go down to 13th. What are the safety impacts of that? Can we look at information technology to alert people at 27th that there's a train, please go to 21st Street, use that underpass. So it's higher level planning. It doesn't get down to design and engineering.
Very good. Councilmember Roussos?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to remind council that the appropriate time to have opposed this was back in August when we were passing the UPWP, and it was listed as a priority for staff to do this year, to do this planning exercise this year. If we had opposed it then, they wouldn't have gone through all the effort to put the RFP out, collect the responses, and put this contract before us. So with that being said, I'm going to make a motion to approve consent agenda 1E.
Motion is for approval. Is there a second? Councilmember Kulik? Now, discussion on the motion. Councilmember Aspenlighter, Councilmember Shaw.
Yeah, and Councilman Rupsos makes a good point, and I appreciate that, and that's on me. I mean, I'm a year out now, so I don't get that grace period of claiming ignorance with process and procedure. But I do think this raises a bigger question that, we need to spend more time as council people, and we need to spend more time with staff looking at how the long-range transportation planning document jives with the CIP that we pass, particularly on the transportation projects. And we need to talk more about where the funding for these things are coming and where the line of sight and how that document aligns with the CIP and the CIP priorities. Because that's a conversation we really don't have. At least I haven't had, and maybe I zoned out and missed it. But understand Councilman Rupsos's point. I'm still going to be a no because I just can't get on board with spending money that's going to sit on the shelf for 5 to 7 to 8 years to then spend more money to move it forward. So I'll be a no.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Shaw?
Thank you. So I just, a quick follow-up. You mentioned that one of the things that would come out of this is a potential, ideally, gigantic list of sources of funding, but that would be part of the scope of this planning document, is identifying both for the city. I know a lot of our money comes from different pockets, some of it's tied up, but identifying some of those things more clearly as council. Is that kind of accurate?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Shaw, Mayor and Council. That is correct. When we did like the Inner Belt Loop, the Build Grant, those types of things, we did that study to look at funding sources as well as helping us put together a federal application for those funds. So it's always included in our planning level documents to identify potential sources of funding for our projects to move forward. And we know what our allocations are going to be for like urban and CMAC. We know those out, and it just helps plan better.
Thank you. Okay, I appreciate that, and I think that provides value here. I do share a few of the concerns of moving forward with planning when we don't really have a line of sight to funding. But I know it's sometimes a chicken and the egg question of if you don't have the planning, you can't even apply for the funding. So I will support this. I also just want to give a shout out to Councilmember Yakowicz, who I sat by for 2 years and was a tireless champion of this. And so we're finally actually seeing it at council. And I think we have him to thank for a lot of that. And if we get a deeper underpass there and can get ambulances through to the south side, it will be the better for all of our community. So thanks.
Very good. Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you. You've been doing this a long time. And let's say we approve this and we get the plan and it sits. How long is the plan effective? Is it a year or 2 years? In 5 years, will they have to start it all over again because the information has changed? How good is that? And then what does that cost to go back and regurgitate it again and start all over? Is it worth that much money? And how long is the plan valid?
Thank you, Councilmember Boyette, Mayor Council. It varies. Now, again, when I referenced like the Inner Belt Loop study, we did that many, many years ago. And I think we did one update of that when we got closer to the project. So it does sometimes happen if you have, like we have the Molt Road connection study that we did 25 years ago. But I think it's very significant still today. Is there some updating that would maybe need to be done? Yes, because your community changes. That's why we have PL fundings and MPO funds, is to help move those planning processes along. I don't think it would be as an in-depth project to update that. You would look at your current information and adjust those factors such as traffic, those types of things, if there's changes to the railroad. But I think it still is relevant to have that study in hand.
Very good. Any other comments before we proceed to a vote? Okay, and I will vote for this just because it's, in my mind, it's not a matter of just future value and collecting dust, but it really does have immediate value in establishing what our priorities are, because there's going to be a lot of competition for those dollars. And the only way you can really prioritize is if you know the feasibility of the projects that are in competition for those future dollars. And that's immediate value in my mind, plus the improving the chance of getting funding, as has been discussed. And also, it's just with time, things improve. You have to chew on things for a while. So very good. Any further discussion? Don't see any, so we'll proceed to vote. The motion again is for approval of item 1E. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Voting in opposition, Councilmember Aspenlighter. All other council members voting in favor, with the exception of Council members Kennedy and Neese. Councilmember Boyette.
Mayor, I move that we approve item 1Q.
Second by Councilmember Rupsis. Motion is for approval. Item 1Q, resolution of intent to annex Wilson Park. Any discussion? If not, we'll proceed to a vote. The motion is for approval. Item 1Q. If in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Also, again, with the exception of Council members Kennedy and Neese, who are delayed in their ability to listen to us. And Councilmember Aspenlighter, who did not vote. Thank you. That concludes then item 1, brings us to our regular agenda item 2. Denise, would you read item number 2?
Public hearing and resolution assessing nuisance property abatements. Staff recommends approval.
I need to share. Okay. We'll just go through this.
Andy Zeller is
Jerry?
our finance director, and he is bringing up item number 2 on
Good
the screen.
evening, Mayor and City Council. I have before you item number 2, which is nuisance property abatement. There are 2 nuisance property abatements before you. I guess by way of background for Councilmember Rogers, we do assessments typically in the fall for all city properties, and then we do one again in February to capture the last few items that occurred in late summer to go on the next tax bill, or the second half tax bill, which would be due in May. So that's what is before council tonight at this agenda item as well as the next. So agenda item 2 is nuisance property abatement. 2 items on here, one at 607 South 32nd Street for $3,763.17. The other one at 2012 Virginia Lane for $337.39. These would go to reimburse the general fund when collected, as that is where code enforcement is paid out of, and the expenses for code enforcement occur. Tina did provide me with 2 before and after photos, and then I believe is here for additional information if needed. Here's a before and after on 607 South 32nd, and then the property on Virginia. Reminder, Mayor, this is a public hearing and staff recommends approval. I'll stop sharing for now.
Okay, very good. Andy, if you can just address the issue of possible changes to the list.
This one there is not changes to.
No changes, and you don't anticipate any between now and, well, we'll approve
Not for
it
the
tonight.
assessments. The weeds is a separate item.
Very
yes.
good. Any questions for Andy before we open up for a public hearing? I don't see any questions, Andy. So this is a public hearing. Item number 2, assessments for properties for weed abatements, or I'm sorry, for nuisance property abatements. If anybody would like to comment on item 2, we invite you to the podium. Just ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes and tell us your name and address. Is there any public comment on item number 2? Sir? Just ask that you talk into that microphone. Sometimes it's a little sensitive.
Do I have to push a button?
Ooh, no, we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. My name is Laverne Bass, and I live at 2012 Virginia Lane. I bought that property 31 years ago from the custom builder Bruce Hageson. It's to give you some reference. It's the property where the creek that goes into Pioneer Park flows through my backyard, and there's a duck pond that the builder made there. It's a very nice property. Bruce Hageson used to call it the Duck House before he passed recently. I've lived there 31 years, and it's a long time. I like it. In fact, some of you may, I know 4 of you, some of you may recognize my name or my face. I was on the planning board representing Ward 3 for 4 years under the previous mayor. I'm kind of upset, is the best way I can put it, about the way that the abatement was performed by the code enforcement personnel. We had a meeting on the 3rd of September, right after Labor Day, and I thought that we had it all understood. The director of the abatement for the code enforcement, a man by the name of Russell, I don't recall his last name, and the deputy director was a lady. They were pretty nice, and everything seemed to be all right. Russell gave us his word that the performance of the abatement would be on Wednesday, the 23rd of October. I presented a document that's 4 pages long, which I would like you to read. Basically, I don't think they treated us right. I think that they didn't really care what our feelings were or how much inconvenience we put us through, or the fact that they had to do the abatement. I think that if they would have done it on the 23rd, like Russell promised us twice, that they wouldn't have even bid on abatement. You wouldn't have had to remove anything. But he came on the 22nd, not the 23rd, Tuesday. And they worked for about an hour and a half. They had a crew of 8 plus the 2 directors. They woke us up. We had worked hard all weekend on a yard sale. And Monday we hauled a trailer load to the dump. And on Tuesday we intended to haul 2 more loads to the dump and put a lot of things into the garage and into the house. Russell stated that he was going to be there on the 23rd. He did not keep that promise.
Very good. I think that will.
That's all I have to say.
We appreciate the facts. We'll just ask for code enforcement to comment, and so don't go anywhere.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll see if there's any other public comment before we turn it over to code enforcement. Is there any other public comment on this item before we close the public hearing?
Questions.
Okay. It looks like we do have another piece of public comment. Go ahead, sir. And Laverne, if you can step out, and I think we need you to talk on that one. There you go. And then
Paul Clark.
if we've got questions for you, Laverne, we'll call you back up.
I'll let him know.
Sure.
My name is Paul Clark, 7th and 32nd. I just realized that that's my neighbor's house. And correct me on the terminology called abatement. How does that apply?
Abatement is just where the city goes in to solve a problem that the landowner had not.
Okay, that's what we've done. Now, is this man going to be responsible for that 3,700 and?
No, our number is $337.39.
Okay.
The other person
The
at
one
a different address is the $3,037.
Yeah, the 607 South 32nd Street.
And Mr. Bass, you don't have to leave. Maybe he didn't hear that. Maybe somebody could make sure.
He said he was deaf.
Oh, okay, great.
So I don't know sign language, and but anyway, I just wanted to correct, what was the terminology of the abatement? It definitely, he's been warned more than once to clean it up, and he has his own worries and his own problems. That's fine. I just didn't know the clarification of that, what was wrong with it, other than if I put that up for sale, I'm not going to get anybody that wants to buy that home because of what my neighbor looks like. Okay, so I understand that. And that's where I have a couple of other issues, but I don't think I can address them right now.
This is just on this item.
That's just on this item?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good. Okay.
You need to stay here. They want to talk to you some more.
I can't hear you.
You need to stay here. They want to talk to you some more.
Okay, sure.
Hang on to your wallet.
Actually, if you can help, just tell him to go ahead and take a seat, and we'll ask code enforcement. Will he be able to, Laverne, will you be able to hear code enforcement? If not, maybe he could stand real close.
Okay. Come with me, friend. Let's come sit down.
What?
Come over here. Let's sit down.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
So, Tita, I'm sure we're going to want Mr. Bass to be able to hear you. So we may have to repeat what you say, but we apologize. But go ahead.
Okay. This case was opened in December of 2023. We received a court-ordered abatement, and we didn't conduct the abatement until October. So as I look through, and it's Marshall, not Russell, as I look through his case, there were many attempts to bring this into compliance prior to having to actually execute the abatement order. And staff is required to post the property 1 week with the date before we come out. And that was done in this case. We went out there that week. I was not there. I was at conference, so I believe it was Marshall, and he took one other officer with him to conduct that abatement. And that's why the fee is so low compared to some of the abatements that we do.
So the critical question was whether the date had changed. Did you say that there
Not
was
that I'm aware of.
a written notice that said when the abatement would be done?
Staff is required to send a letter and also to post the property and take a picture of that photo, of that posting, date and time stamped.
So I'm sorry, the question was there a written notice sent to him of when the abatement would occur?
Yes.
And
the
okay.
property was also posted.
With that date of abatement, not just that it needed to be done, but that when it would occur.
Yes, the same letter that is sent to him in the mail with an additional copy of the abatement order is also, the letter is also posted on the property a week prior, and we photograph
Okay,
that.
and do you have a copy of that with you? That
Not
would,
with me. It should be in the file, but it is not. I know there is a copy of it, though.
okay,
I've seen it.
sort of monopolize this, but I'm assuming if this is approved tonight, you could check that date.
Yes.
And waive this fee if he was not given the correct date. Is that?
If that's what you want me to do.
Okay, there's a possibility anyway. Okay. Okay. All right, I'm going to turn it over to council to either ask questions of Mr. Bass or Tina. I saw Councilmember Boyd and Councilmember Aspliner.
So was it the 23rd that you remember on the letter, or the 22nd?
I was out of town that week. I believe it was the 22nd that they did the abatement. I would have to check the file to see the photo. I don't have it as part of the photos in this one.
But you understood what the mayor was saying?
I am.
If the date was different, then we're bad. Okay.
No, I get it.
Councilor Aspliner?
Having conducted a public hearing, consider written and spoken testimony, I move to approve resolution assessing nuisance property abatements as recommended by staff. As recommended by staff, not with the rest of this.
Second by Councilmember Tidswell. And Councilmember Aspliner, I just want to clarify your intent. You heard my colloquy with Tina that I asked her if they could check, and if that date was different from backs up what Mr. Bass said, that we would waive the fee. Is that your intent, or is that not your intent?
No, that's not my intent, because I don't think we're ever going to get resolution to that. What was said, spoken in a conversation is never going to be able to be resolved. So my intent of my motion is as it's written in the staff report.
Okay, further discussion. All right. I agree on the spoken part. It's just if we gave him a different date in writing, I have some concerns about that. Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion? Before we proceed to a vote. Councilor Boyette.
Mayor, just to clarify, I think that code enforcement would have the discretion of looking at their paperwork, and if they'd said it the 22nd, it was the 22nd, they move on. If it's not, then that's a different story. But I think they should have the ability to look at that themselves.
And do what? That if this is approved, are you saying that they'll just act on it, or because my understanding is they don't have that luxury. Once we approve it, it is approved.
Okay, then I'll make a substitute motion that this goes along here, but if they do find that the dates are conflicting and that the city did make a mistake, that they correct it.
Okay, by waiving it.
By waiving.
Okay, that would be, I second that substitute motion. So that's the substitute motion, Councilor Rupsis.
I guess I would just ask a procedural question is, how does that work if we're passing a resolution that says these are the properties we're assessing?
I'm sorry, if we pass a resolution that says what?
What we're approving is a resolution that says we're assessing these two properties this special tax.
It would be contingent on staff's determination and potentially removal of
Do we have
that
any
item.
language like that in the resolution? I don't know that we do.
If we pass this, it would require a modification of the resolution. Danielle, you want to comment?
I believe if you're going to substitute the motion, it would have to be an entirely new motion. So
I'm asking about it. So the motion is now to approve some modified version of this resolution that gives staff flexibility to not assess the fee if they found an error in their paperwork.
I think so, but it may be irrelevant because Tina is coming forward. She asked for 5
that would be
seconds to
much better.
check her records, so we will give her that. Yeah, I said I seconded it. Yeah.
And then if the dates are correct, then I withdraw my motion.
Tina's coming forward.
The one that was posted on the property does say the 22nd.
Which was the day of the abatement.
Yes.
Okay, and Mr. Bass would have gotten a written copy of that.
I can give him a copy of it. I'll give it to him tomorrow.
Yeah, but no, at the time he would have received,
It was posted on his property, yes.
posted on his property.
So Mayor, I withdraw my motion.
Okay, very good. It brings us back to the original, motion. Any further discussion? Well, let's see if there's how the vote goes. So if in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes. So you'll have to tell him that the written notice that he got was for the earlier date and they were going by that. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. That concludes item number 3. Brings us to item number 4.
Public hearing and resolution assessing weed abatements. Staff recommends approval.
Good evening. It's not changing. There we go. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Before you is a resolution to assess the second half or the fall weed abatements or weed assessments. In this case, property owners are notified to cut their overgrown weeds. If they don't do it, Parks goes out. They charge $100 an hour. There's a $40 inspector fee, an additional 25% charge, and then a $25 penalty for the first offense. This means your lowest possible bill is $190. As if you looked at the attachment on the resolution, you'd see multiples of those.
Excuse me, Andy. Hey, Paul, I'm just going to ask if you could just take that outside and then you can talk at full volume. Absolutely. Okay. Sure, sure. That'd be great. Yeah, no, that's great. If you could just take it outside, then you don't have to whisper and you'll be able to talk at full volume. Thank you. Very good. No, that's fine. We appreciate your help.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Mayor, City Council, the resolution that's attached, I believe, has 40 properties on it. Since that was posted, 6 have come in and paid. So the total assessed amount actually goes down from 9,000 down to 7,164.36. With your motion tonight, we're asking that you authorize staff to remove those from the exhibit so that we don't assess them for a bill they've already paid. And potentially someone came in to, this evening and paid, but this was current as of this morning. So Tina had provided me with some stats here just to give you a point of reference, if you so desire. You see here, there in 2024, 1,100 cases opened, 162 were sent to be cut by parks, 34 of which were cut when parks arrived, and 33 were assessed in the fall, an additional 34 at this point, a total of 128. So the majority of people came in and paid that won't go to their property taxes, and then some historical data for you there as well. Again, Mayor, this is a public hearing, and staff recommends approval, authorizing us to remove those that have since paid since the agenda was published.
Very good. Questions for Andy? Any questions for Andy? Okay, this is a public hearing. We'll open it up, see if there is any public comment on item number 3, weed abatements. Any public comment on item number 3? Any public comment on item number 3? No one is coming forward. No one's coming forward. We'll close the public hearing on item number 3. Look for a motion. Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve the resolution assessing weed abatements as recommended by staff, plus the additional removal of the 6, whoever has paid.
Very good. Second, Councilmember Rogers. Any discussion? Any discussion? Don't see any, so we'll proceed to vote. Motion is for approval, item number 3, with the condition that council is authorizing staff to remove any paid items from the list. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Recognizing Councilmembers Kennedy and Neese are not able to vote. Brings us to item number 4. 4A. Denise, would you please read 4A?
Yes, Mayor. Public hearing and resolution approving annexation 24-05, an area known as Annafeld Subdivision 6th filing. Staff recommends conditional approval.
Very good. Hunter.
All right. Does that show up sharing it normally? Okay. All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So tonight we have a few items in tandem. This is going to be going over annexation 24. Sorry about that. So, as I was saying, we have several items tonight. We're going to be going over annexation 2405 as well as Annafeld Subdivision 6 filing. So, to briefly go over the interconnectedness of the items tonight, So we are going to be going over the annexation resolution, going over the annexation criteria for the properties involved. We will likewise be going over the ward boundary ordinance associated with this annexation, as well as the major plat, the preliminary plat for Anafeld Subdivision 6 filing. So, going over the annexation first, in front of you is the exhibit for this annexation. McCall is intending to annex these three areas highlighted in green, Area 1, Area 2, and Area 3, into the city. Altogether, the acreage of these parcels being brought in comes to about 12.35 acres. So in front of you here is the limits, the map regarding the limits of annexation compared to the area proposed to be annexed. As you can see, all this area is included in the Zone 1 petition area for annexation. Here's the zoning map for the areas that are being annexed into the city. As you can see, the area being annexed, as well as most of the land to the north and east, is part of the Anafeld Planned Unit Development, and it is surrounded by agriculture land to the south, industrial land to the west, and then to the northwest is civic and institutional land, which represents Elysian School. Here's the satellite photos of the areas proposing to be annexed currently. So as you can see, most of the Anafeld subdivision is built or being built, and this is moving the subdivision proper more westward to completion. So here are some site photos of the posting we did a few weeks ago, back when it was still a little brisk outside. It's a little hard to tell the directions given the snow coverage and all the other weather. So as part of our criteria for an annexation, we take a look at the following criteria. That one, the area needs to be within either zone 1 or zone 3 of the limits of annexation. As you saw earlier, it was in zone 1. The city will be able to adequately provide services to the city. This annexation is part of a proposed subdivision, Anafeld 6 filing. So in lieu of our regular annexation agreement, the subdivision improvement agreement will be taken into place in order to adhere to all the infrastructure improvements that'll be necessary. Criteria number 3, any existing or proposed public improvements within the area to be annexed will need to meet city standards, which again will be fulfilled by the SIA. Condition number 4, all property owners within the area to be annexed will need to sign a waiver of right to protest the creation of special improvement districts. This language is included in the Anafeld SIA. All residential property owners within the area need to be annexed will either need to create or join an existing park maintenance district. These will be joining park maintenance district number 4041 for any additional parkland to be added to the area. Criteria number 6, any residential densities planned for development within the area will need to meet the overall average minimum density of primary units as described in the City of Billings growth policy. This area, as part of being Anafeld 6 filing subdivision, will have an average density of around 10 dwelling units per acre, which will fulfill that requirement. And then finally, the area to be annexed will need to conform to the goals of the City of Billings growth policy. We feel that is most in line with the strong neighborhoods, home base, and essential essential investments portions of our growth policy. So with all of that being said, staff is recommending to the City Council hold a public hearing on this annexation. And upon completion of the hearing, staff recommends that the city annex the petition property with the staff recommended conditions of approval.
Hunter, that is your presentation? Is that correct?
For the annexation, yes.
Okay, very good. The developer is with us. Do you know if he wanted to make any comments on the annexation? He is shaking his head, so we'll say no. Any questions for Hunter on the annexation before we open up for a public hearing? No indication here, so this is a public hearing on the proposed annexation, item 6A. Anybody would like to comment on the annexation petition, please come forward now. Is there any public comment on item 6A? Any public comment on item 6A? No public comment, no one is coming forward, so we will close the public hearing on item 6A. Back to council with any other questions or motion on this item. Councilmember Rogers, go ahead.
Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve a resolution conditionally approving annexation 24-05 as recommended by staff.
Very good. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Shaw. Motion is for approval, item 6A. Any discussion? Any discussion on 6A? Seeing none, if in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Councilmember Rogers has got her first victory there. So recognizing Councilmembers Kennedy and Neese, because of technical difficulties, we're not able to vote. With that, we'll move on to 6B, the preliminary plat. Hunter, now the subdivision.
Alrighty, so ladies and gentlemen, now we're going to be going over Anafeld Subdivision 6th filing. Sorry about that. So as previously stated, this is an area located in the Anafeld subdivision region. As previously stated, the zoning on the area is part of the Anafeld Planned Unit Development. The subdivision itself is going to be covering a gross 13.54 acres with a net 8.49 acres intended for residential development. The subdivision is proposed to be done in 3 phases, which I will illustrate in a future slide. Regarding parkland requirements for this, the subdivision required 0.93 acres of parkland, and this specific plat is providing 0.49 acres of private parkland. Parkland dedication for this subdivision has actually already been met by previous filings of Anafeld subdivision. As we've done historically, we have counted the parkland as submitted through the previous filings as cumulative to the project as a whole. And at this point, they are over the required amount of parkland for the subdivision. So this area located in red is the area that is proposed to be subdivided tonight as part of this application. So as you can see, there's some overlap from the annexation. So here is the proposed phasing plan for this subdivision. As you can see that phase 2 and phase 3 both have the date of November 1st, 2030. After discussing it with the applicants, it is our understanding that they are intending to open at the very least open by that date, but presumably have it done sooner, with phase 1 being done in a more immediate manner. So with all that being said, The Planning Board is recommending to the City Council that the preliminary plat of Annafeld Subdivision 6 filing be conditionally approved and the findings of fact adopted as presented in the staff report. The 4 conditions of approval in this case being that number 1, prior to final plat approval, the applicant shall provide names for the streets to the land manager coordinator for approval and list these approved street names on the plat, subdivision improvements agreement, and other supporting documents. Condition number 2, to minimize the effects on local service prior to final plat approval, the applicant will coordinate with the USPS to determine what type of delivery system is preferred and to locate and provide the correct amount of space for safely delivering mail to the residents. Condition number 3, minor changes may be made to the SIA and final documents as requested by the planning, legal, or public works departments to clarify the documents and bring them into standard acceptable format. And finally, condition number 4, the final plat shall comply with all the requirements of the City of Billings subdivision regulations, as well as the rules, regulations, policies, and resolutions of the City of Billings, and the laws and administrative rules of the state of Montana. Any questions?
Are there any questions for Hunter? I don't see any. Again, the developer is with us. Do you know whether he had any comments this evening? No. Okay, so developer indicates no presentation. There is no hearing on this, council, so is there a motion?
I move to approve the preliminary plat for Annafeld subdivision, 6th filing as recommended by staff.
Motion is for approval, second by Councilmember Boyette. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. Motion is for approval. Item 6B, consistent with staff recommendation. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously, exception of Council members Kennedy and Neese who are unable to vote because of technical difficulties. That concludes item 4B. 4C. Denise, would you read item 4C?
Public hearing and first reading ordinance expanding the boundaries of Ward 3 to include recently annexed property in annexation 24-05, Annafeld subdivision 6th filing. Staff recommends approval.
Very good. I assume, Hunter, you have no presentation on item 4C. He confirms no presentation. Councilors, Roger, it's our custom to let the council, someone from that ward make the motion so they can expand their kingdom. That is your desire. It's all yours. Oh, I apologize. I'm getting ahead. Is there any public comment, comment at all on item 4C, the addition of this property to Ward 3? Any public comment? Any public comment? No one is coming forward. We'll close the public hearing on item 4C. And now I'll ask Councilmember Rogers that question.
Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and public testimony, spoken public testimony, I move to approve the first reading ordinance expanding the boundaries of Ward 3 as recommended by staff.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Gulick. As the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. Motion is for approval, item 4C. If in favor, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously, again with the exception of Council members Kennedy and Neese because of technical difficulties. That concludes our regular agenda. I'll move into public comment. We do have a council initiative. There is a delay, so Council members Neese and Kennedy can't hear us, but just want to repeat, if they would like to comment on anything before we come to the end of our meeting, please send a chat or a text to Chris or Kevin or otherwise contact us so we can make sure that we have an opportunity to hear from you if you desire. We'll move on then to public comment on things that are not on our agenda tonight. Is there any public comment on something that was not on our agenda tonight? If so, please come forward. Just ask to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Tell us who you are.
Good evening, Mr. Oh, good evening. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is John Halverson. I'm here tonight in my capacity as a private citizen at 239 Avenue F. I'm the newly minted Vice President of the Partners for Parks Foundation. And I would like to invite you all to ask yourselves in a very somber way if you are ready for a party or a honky-tonkin' good time, because that's what is happening at the pub station on May 9th. We have barbecue, we have two-stepping lesson for those of us with two left feet, and we have the Hell Roaring that are going to be putting on a show, and this is all to go to raise money for Caden's Court, which will be a basketball court in Pioneer Park, where the recently removed softball backstop and everything was. Caden Ettinger was a young man who went to senior high who overdosed, was poisoned by fentanyl. And his mother has approached us about raising funds to build that basketball court as a memorial. And I'm really proud that we're doing it. So I would like to invite everyone and the tens of people who can hear my voice right now to come join us in doing this good thing for our community. Thank you.
Hey, John, on our copy on the far left margin, the times are obscured. Can you tell us what those times are on May 9th? And what day of the week is that?
May 9th is a Friday. The doors and dinner start at 6. The two-stepping lesson by Treasure State Country Entertainment is at 7 o'clock, and then the band starts at 7:30, and they're going to play a 3-hour set. So my grandfather would always extol the virtues of two-stepping and how good it can be for your marriage. And so I'll say it's good for you to get out and do that kind of thing. So
very good.
Yeah.
And thank you for your service, and thank you to Partners for Parks.
Thank you.
Encourage the whole public to come out. 125,000 people. Can you accommodate that? 290. Okay, well, that's perfect. Very good. Thank you very much. Any other public comment on things not on our agenda tonight? Any other public comment on non-agenda items? No one's coming forward, so we'll close that item. We do have a council initiative. I'll turn it to Councilmember Owen, unless Councilmember Owen, you had a different plan.
No, actually, I almost completely forgotten about it. Thank you, Mayor. So this has been circulated, and I'm happy to answer questions. I won't spend too much time talking about it. The ask tonight is that we put this on a future agenda. There will need to be discussions. So this initiative is designed to address what we heard from the utility audit, that one of the biggest challenges we faced was some of the project management. And this is designed to open that conversation and just begin working on what that looks like at the city administration and the council level. There is a draft resolution that's included as a part of the initiative, just as a kicking off point for conversation. I've had great conversations with Councilmember Aspenleiter. Councilmember Rupsis has provided some tremendous feedback and proposed edits to the content, and I think we have an internal meeting set up here shortly. So this is really about ensuring there's not just good, clear communication internally and externally, but also that everyone is on the same page when we kick off major initiatives, and that everyone along that chain has the ability to say, whoa, time out, we're getting off track here, so that no individual person is left kind of on their own to bear the full burden of a project. There's going to need to be a lot of work here in terms of scope and applicability, and I look forward to those conversations. Tonight, the ask is just to simply allow this to be put on a future agenda when it's ready. Happy to answer any questions, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions for Councilmember Owen? I guess I just have, this is not really a question, it's a bit of a comment, but I want you to have an opportunity. I just made a little list at the bottom of other things that are on our plate now. The legislature is really huge going into it. The Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter, Wilson Park, substance abuse, crisis response units, getting that back in line, implementation of the CPSM study, hiring a parks director, the TIF expansion, budget preparation, the rec center, getting the contracts set up, utility billing, collecting the old bills, unpaid bills, a staff and council retreat in the next month or two. A lot of things on the list. Is this something? All of that are things that our city administrator, assistant city administrator have some involvement with.
Yeah.
Is this something we can add to their list?
That's a great question, Mayor, and thank you. So two responses, I guess. The first I would say is that's the absolute reason that I went to the effort of trying to draft a resolution at the outset. Typically, that's what we give to staff is say, I don't know, I have some thoughts, you figure out the rest. I've tried not to do that to alleviate the burden, but actually to give us text to work off of. Second, I think everything you've listed is important. A lot of them are things that I personally have worked on, but I think if you ask the public what they care most about is knowing that this utility bill situation won't happen again. And so I would say this is urgent. It may take a while to work on, but I don't think that we should just sit on the audit. I think we should give the public the reassurance that we heard the recommendation, which is we have to address how major projects or projects that are significantly important to the public are addressed. And this is a step forward in earning that public trust back. I don't know that there's anything more important we could do with our time than show the public that we're hearing their frustration and acting on it. So I would say this is important, and I am willing to carry as much of the load in moving this forward as necessary in terms of drafting, convening meetings, working with departments to resolve this. And again, can't stress enough how much I appreciate the other council members who've already provided great input and feedback.
Very good, thank you. Other questions for Councilmember Rowan? I don't want to monopolize one other question. Councilmember Owen, we always have lengthy contracts for our business meetings, or not always, but typically we do. And some of them are 50 pages long, you know. And I guess and so some of the items that are in the proposed resolution to function as performance indicators are project milestones, financial performance, timelines, public communications. My recollection is a lot of those things are included in existing detailed contracts that we already have. Are we trying to do something different, or are we trying to replicate that with other projects? Or how do our existing contracts fit this bill or not fit the bill? Typically, if you can generalize.
I think that's a great question, and probably one that we need to work through a little bit. My initial sense, without trying to be overly prescriptive, is that the kickoff and the vision and the setting of milestones based on the recommendation we heard in the utility audit needs to happen before the contract. Now, I think there's some negotiation with the vendor who's ultimately selected, right? But I think what I heard from the audit, and having spent quite a bit of time visiting with them, is that we went into it without sort of a clear vision of what we wanted to accomplish. And it kind of got developed over time. And I think the recommendation that I heard was to try to do that sooner in the process, have all the right people on board early in the process. So my hope would be that, first of all, we're not duplicating internal project management strategies, that we're only focusing on those things most important to the allocation of budget resources, which is really where council belongs in the process. But that we are earlier than the contract itself.
Okay, very good.
I'm sorry, I've stopped talking now.
Do you want me to say something?
By the end of this meeting, we are going to figure out the second thing, maybe. Okay. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anything else for Councilmember Owen? Okay, this is on our agenda, so it is, the public has had notice of it. It's set up for a vote, so we'll proceed to a vote. There's not a motion on the floor.
I could certainly make a motion, Mayor, if that's
I
necessary.
apologize. You did make the motion?
Well, I thought the initiative was the emotion, so I'm still, after 4 years, unclear on the initiative process.
Yeah, make an oral motion.
Okay. I would move that the initiative with respect to performance metrics and major projects be adopted.
Very good. Second by Councilmember Tidswell. Very good. Any discussion? If not before, okay, Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. Whether it be this or if something else, we do need to be ahead of the game going forward with any major malfunction not happening. I mean, we didn't know enough what questions to ask. We need to answer the questions and have people ready in place before we start bringing in computer programs, especially like the new police department might want one. We need to be ahead with the questions before we even get to that point. So nothing wrong with this. Maybe it's a duplication of some little things, but we do need to be ahead of the game. There's no question about that.
Very good. Any other discussion before we proceed to a vote? Okay, I'm not seeing any. If in favor of the motion, please say aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes. unanimously, and with the exception of Councilmembers Kennedy and Neese, still unable because of technical difficulties. That is the final item on our agenda this evening. Thank you, and thank you, council. Thank you, public, for your patience with our technical difficulties. We'll see you in 7 days. Good night. We are adjourned.